that I love with every single burning fiber of my being. Crossing out. This is a masterpiece. Hello team, my name is Monique. Welcome back to the Cauldron, and it's the beginning of the new month, so obviously we gotta wrap up the last month. In case you didn't know, this is Bookwitch Reviews, my channel, and I play a TBR game called TBR Tombola every month, and then I wrap it up at the beginning of the next month. And since we are now in June, I gotta wrap up May. In May, I read 9 books, which was slightly better than in April, but still not as good as I have done the rest of the year, sort of mainly. But it is still a win, because any books are a win because I love reading. So I read 5 physical books and 4 ebooks, and that came to a total of 3,584 pages. So, okay, I have read more, I have read less. We don't care about that. Let's just walk through what I actually did read. And this has been a surprisingly nice month for me. I have a whopping 3 5-stars on this list. So let me just walk you through what I read. I started the month off with Fireheart Tiger by Aliette de Bodard, which, as you can see, is a short fantasy novella. This one follows a young princess who, as a child, was sent away from her mother's court to sort of act as a hostage to this empire that is sort of looming over their borders. While she was away, one of the palaces that she was in burned down, and as she has returned, the fire has followed her. Now, however, she is trying her best to be of usage to her mother, but her ex-partner suddenly shows up. There is more to who they were than what we actually know of. And this little story, it's 99 pages. It packs a punch. I ended up giving it 3.5 stars because, as always, I wanted it to be longer. I wanted it to be more. And I shouldn't actually rate it by like regular novel length standards, but I do. However, I am very excited about reading more from this author. So that is the first book. It was not on my TBR, but I just felt like reading it, and it was a fast little read. The next book I read was actually on my TBR for the month, and that was The Ones We're Meant to Find by Joan, which I actually had as a NetGalley arc. This came out in May, I believe. I think the end May, but I'm not sure. I'll leave the actual publication date right here. And this book was one that I was very, very excited about. It says that it is a sci-fi. However, I look at it as sort of more of a dystopia, because sci-fi for me is more like galaxy. However, sci-fi is actually just anything sort of in the futuristic setting-ish. But this one I mainly look forward to because of Joan He's debut. Descendants of the Crane was a book that very much surprised me with the twists and the turns. And in the same way, this book does take like a turn. It goes somewhere I did not expect. However, it also had a few aspects that I definitely saw coming. The writing is beautiful. It's very lyrical. The sort of relationship between the characters are amazing. However, in the end, I just felt like it was a little bit too long, or it just maybe wasn't for me right in that moment. So I ended up giving it 3 stars. However, The Ones We're Meant to Find follows one girl mainly who wakes up on an island with no memory of how she has gotten there. All that she knows is that her sister is somewhere waiting for her. And then we are also following said sister in one of humanity's last places on Earth where they can be safe, which is one of these floating cities, because the world is intent on breaking apart. Many different things are happening. A lot of information is sort of thrown at you. And I wish that there was more to it. I think that's what I was waiting for, and I just didn't get that, which is why it's a fine rating. It's not the best in the entire world. I don't know if I'm gonna rush out to buy this book, even though the cover in itself is literally a stunner. But yeah, that was just, I read it, and that was that. This book came in on my TBR as number 35 and as a sci-fi. So let us see if 35 is on the bingo sheet. Boop, 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 boop. It is not. Okay, moving on. The next book that I then read was one that I knew was coming to me. It actually arrived about a week earlier than it was meant to, and it was not originally on my TBR. However, I swapped it out for 2 other books that I had on my TBR because I'd put a duology on it because I wanted to read the second book, and I didn't get around to them. I will at one point, but since I actually allow myself to swap out books if I want to, I can. And what I read was this. This is The House of Always by Jenn Lyons. This is the 4th book in the A Chorus of Dragons series, which is a epic high adult fantasy that I love with every single burning fiber of my being. The first book, A Ruin of Kings, we meet Kieran, who is the young adopted son of a bard who finds out that he may actually be a son of one of the nobility. So he gets dragged into this world that is very far from what he had expected. He's then also faced with the fact that he may have to take part in a prophecy that sets him as the person who will ruin the world. And this series is so expansive, it is so intense, it is queer normative, it has a whole array of cultures that function differently around gender and sexuality. I love it so much. We have the most perfect sort of trio of love and babies as ever. This book was completely not what I expected, and yet everything that I hoped for, and we have literally just been sort of given the 5th and final installment cover, which will be out sometime in 2022, and I can't wait that long. But this was first 5-star of the month. It was so good, it was so amazing, it was everything and all the good there is in the world in this book, and I may have cried a little. I also tabbed it. I want to read the entire series again, and I just don't have time. The House of Always took the space of another book, as I have mentioned, as a continued series, and that is for the number 24. So let us see if 24 is on this list. It is not. Okay, then let us move on. Let's not think too much about the fact that I just sort of threw everything out and just read that immediately. So yeah. The next book I read was actually on my May TBR, and that is Bloody Rose by Nicholas Eames, which is the sequel to The Kings of the Wild. This is a like adult fantasy series that is sort of based around a D&D campaign, and yet also sort of like a band tour. And in the first book, Kings of the Wild, we meet these sort of old grumpy men who used to be like the heroes, and in this second book we are following a daughter of one of the original members, and she sets out to sort of right the world. We have a whole new cast of characters. I was told that this book was going to absolutely break my heart and hurt me. I don't know if was I reading it too fast, because that didn't quite happen for me. I actually loved Kings of the Wild more than I loved Bloody Rose, even though Bloody Rose has a whole host more of queer characters, including a very lesbian character right in the middle, and like strong bi characters. And though the ending, like, it did wrench my heart a little bit, I did not cry, and I'm sad about that. So in the end I gave this 4 stars, but I am very glad that I got to it, and I am supremely excited about where else this saga can sort of go. As this book was on my May TBR and I have read it this month, I am allowed to cross off the number if it was available. This one was 25, which was yet another one to continue a series. So let us see if 25 is on this list. It is. It's right there. Crossing out. Doopy 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 doop. Ha! Next book I read was another E-arc, and that was All Our Hidden Gifts by Caroline O'Donoghue, which is a contemporary fantasy that I absolutely adored. It hit me out of nowhere. In this book, we are following Maeve, who is a young teenage girl who is just sort of trying to fit in school, though she has actually lost her best friend a year previously and is now just sort of doing her best, but she doesn't have a whole lot going for her up until she finds a tarot card deck in school and starts doing reading for the other people in her class, including her ex-best friend Lily. However, once she has done Lily's cards, Lily disappears. Suddenly Maeve, her new friend, and Lily's gender non-binary sibling Ro has to set out to try and find Lily. This book is bursting with magic. It is bursting with pride and queerness and beautifulness, and it just really like hooked into my heart in a way that I really wasn't expecting, for the fact that this is like a contemporary fantasy YA book. But it was so good. It's also a little bit creepy, and it's just, I really loved it. I ended up giving it 4 stars. It might even be like a 4.5 star. And I'm so excited about the fact that this is actually a series and a second book is definitely coming out. This book came in as number 55 on the TBR, so let us see if we got 55. We don't even have any 50 whatsoever, so let's just skip ahead. The next book I read was Furthermore by Tehereh Mafi, which was a middle grade on my TBR. In this book, we are following Alice, who is living in a world where color and magic are one and the same. However, she is born without any magic at all and is basically born colorless as well. So one day she sets out with this young boy to find her father, who mysteriously disappeared a couple of years before. I really love the writing of this book. I think it has very much that mystical, sort of adventurous feeling that you really like in middle grade. Is very whimsical. It's stock full of magic. It is full of like banter and fun. However, it is very much like a YA read. It goes very fast, and then the ending for me, I felt like just wrapped up a little bit too quickly, and I ended up giving this one 3.5 stars, mainly because I really love the lyrical writing. But it is another book that is off of my TBR, so yay me. I do want to read the second book in this like Evermore series, which I've heard has really great like Muslim rep as well. So Furthermore came onto the TBR as number 70, which was a middle grade. So let us see if we got 70. We do not. The next book was another arc that came out very late in May. However, it is one that just took me by storm, and that is Blackheart Nights by Laure. It is not actually on my TBR, but I was just kind of like, oh, I should just read it. I wasn't sure if I was even going to like it, and I was just kind of like, oh, I'll try it a little bit, and then I got sucked in. It is a weird, gritty, sort of urban fantasy / magical realism book. It is inspired by Arthurian legend. When I went into the book, I just thought it was like, oh, like it's inspired by... No, it's actually a reimagining of the story of King Arthur, his life and his death. And this book, we are following two separate timelines. We are following Art, who is a reluctant heir to the throne, and we are following Red, who is just sort of trying to make it through night school, and she wants to do this because she wants to like take revenge over who we do not know. But this world is set in a London that is sort of like our London, but is not our London. We have knights on motorcycles that fight like gladiators in these big rings. There is electricity, there's these big power plays, there's a lot of political intrigue, there is so much queerness. I absolutely adored it. We have a main gender non-binary character as well, and Red is obviously either bi or pansexual. I feel like the entire cast are bi and pansexual, bi and pansexual, and that really worked for me. And the ending is literally just like mind-blowing. I enjoyed it so much, and I so want the next book, because apparently there is a next book, which I'm very happy about, because that ending though, give me that book right now. Ended up giving this 4.5 stars, and I'm just like, I'm so excited that I read it. It's so gritty, so weird. There is lots of violence, so just please be aware of that. And it's just like, it was so good. Immediately after Blackheart Nights, I decided that I wanted to read the book that had just come in the door, and that is The Bone Maker by Beth Durst. And this is another adult fantasy. This is a standalone, and it is just everything that I wanted it to be. Beth Durst is a much underappreciated author from my perspective. I do not feel like people talk enough about her, and people especially do not talk enough about her Queens of Renfia series. But this one is a complete standalone, standing in its own universe. And basically we are set 25 years after this group of chosen ones banished the great evil, but they did it at a great cost. And basically now the leader of the chosen ones spends her days in this abandoned tower trying to bring her one true love back to life. However, the only way that she can do this is by using human bones, which is very much illegal and not allowed. But the only place that she thinks that she might be able to find these bones is if she goes back to where it all started. However, it seems that the evil may still be lurking there. This is just like a middle-aged fun romp in the same way that I think Kings of the Wild is a little bit. And it's just sort of funny that it was never something that I thought would be interesting. But all of these, they are like in their late 30s. I think they're around like maybe 40. And I love them so very much in this book. It's so funny, it's so light, yet it's so fast-paced, and there's so much much action, and I just really desperately want more people to read this one because I absolutely adored it. It's a solid 5-star. And if the next book hadn't come in on my my May reading list, this would have been my favorite of the month. But I obviously did not stop there. I decided that I was going to be ahead of some of my arcs, and I was going to read a book that I have been so very much looking forward to, and I read it in ebook, but now I actually have it in a physical format. This is The Jasmine Throne by Tasha Suri. This is a masterpiece. This is a adult fantasy novel inspired by the rich culture and history of India. In it, we are following these two separate characters who are very much from opposite ends of the world. One of them is Malini, who is a young princess who is sent away by her emperor brother to sort of waste away in this temple, and the other girl is Priya, who is a young priestess who is hiding who she truly is. So she comes in as a maidservant in this temple that she used to be in, and meets Malini, and they get tangled together in a rebellion, in like a overthrow of the emperor. There is severe religious aspects to this book. There is a like plant rot, and it's just their book is so good. There's so much magic. There's all of this tension between them because there's also some queer feelings involved. There is sort of Priya's intense need to like protect her family and Melina's need for revenge, and it's just like, it's so many more than 5 stars. I want everyone to read it. It's so good. And also, this is the very beautiful Illumicrate edition of it. I loved it so much. 5 stars. 5 stars all over the place. It is my favorite read of the month. But as you can see, I just had a really nice month of 5 stars, to be all honest with you. In the end, these are the physical books that I read in May. And obviously I read also a whole lot of e-arcs. I felt like I did really well on reading down some of my arcs on NetGalley. And I actually had a really nice time in May. Like, it was hot, it was sunny, I read some really good books, I read some okay books, and overall I just feel really proud of myself, even though I had 3 books left over from last month, plus the Bookwitch. So, you know, didn't quite win, but I did do something, and that's what matters. So if you guys did enjoy this wrap up, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button, hit subscribe button at the same time so you don't miss out on any other videos from me. You can also click the little bell to give you a notification when I put up a new video. If you would like to check out any of my TBR videos, I will leave links to them down below. And then I just hope that you guys have had as lovely a reading month as me, and that luck has followed you into the next month. So take care of yourself. I'm proud of you. You're doing great. And I'll see you guys next time with another video. Bye.